I had an issue with a system.
Oh,
So
okay. Cool. Well, it's so nice to see you. How you doing?
doing fine. Thanks for asking.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna pull up your slides, and I think if you can just let me know when to move to the next one, I'll make it happen.
Yes.
Can you see them?
Yes, I can see them. So
Okay.
thank you. So you have to uh, be a clicker for me today. So thank you as well. So great. So thank you for having me today. My name is Manoj. I am a CEO and CTO of AI Shield. AI Shield is a corporate startup of Bosch. And what I'm going to talk today is about how to transform the AI safety and security. And I'm going to talk you through with a very specific a slide deck where I'm going to introduce you to the overview of the problem and then the technology and the product and the use cases in similar orders as well. Next slides, please. Next. Yes. So AI Shield is working for a long time into securing the AI systems. We had our own traditional product which essentially does the security of all of the non-generative AI related AI systems. What I'm going to talk today is with respect to AI Shield Guardian, which ensures the safe and compliant enterprise usage of generative AI. And this is mainly the security solutions, works almost as a demilitarized zone between the LLM and applications, where it works as a guardrail, probes the data, and then ensures that during the deployment and the usage sites, the users are protected as well. Next slide, please. We have close to 30 plus customers for both of our product offerings worldwide, and we are one of the leading vendors in the terms of an AI application security, which is the newest category which has been created. And we work with many of the partners across the wide spectrum as well. The next slide, please. Yeah. So Guardian is the most important topic, as many people are talking about, is having a robust guardrails to enable safe and secure adoption of generative AI in enterprises. And this is the topic that we would like to discuss today. Next slide, please. And it is very funny that everyone talks about that having benefits and risk as well. And you see that these are some of the numbers which are coming out where it's essentially that everyone wants to use or planning to use the generative AI. It's fascinating. It's such a new technology and everyone wants to use it. And then there is another end of the spectrum where the people are talking about the risk of it. And I just want to highlight some of the risk that is already available. Next slide, please. So we have already seen all of those kind of news articles which are there, right? Employees are feeding sensitive business data to ChatGPT, raising security concerns, are prone to open source code related vulnerabilities, privacy threats, and many more. And essentially what we have realized is that the generative AI is a double-edged sword. The best way is that you understand and navigate this risk in the enterprise realm where you really want to use the AI technology but not having to worry about them so much when not being in the newspaper articles at least or the one of the leading sites as well. Next slide, please. So now there are two camps, right? Essentially, the opportunities who wants to leverage the AI benefits of generative AI, growth, productivity gains, and people who wants to create a competitive advantage also with investment and adoption. And then there is another side, which is a risk. They are worried about the risk of loss of valuable intellectual property, PII, trade secrets, also a lot of other aspects with respect to the compliance violations, the reputational issues, the damage due to erroneous or biased outputs, and the business modes. And when you have these two kind of camps, there are only two options which are there today. Next slide, please. Which people are taking. People are completely ignoring the risk and using the chat GPT. And then they are assuming this kind of an risk, the brand reputation, loss of IP, legal and compliance issues. And then there is another camp which completely wants to prohibit the use of a large language model. And then they say no risk, and then they missed out onto the opportunity to improve their business in terms of the top line, bottom line, and they will not be able to compete. Then that famous saying kicks in also for the businesses, which is, it's not about that the AI is going to replace your business, but the people or the businesses who are using the AI is going to replace you. So these are the two current dominant positions that we have seen, and that is where it is very, very tricky. The space is very tricky, and organizations literally have no other options today. Next slide, please. And this is where we need to think about how do we balance this. That means we don't have a lot of risk of using the large language models. At the same time, we are able to gain all the benefits of a large language model, and we need something in the middle that brings the best of both worlds. And this balance is the space that we are innovating as well. And this is the balance is what the Guardian does, which essentially balances the risk and ensures that you can have the best of the benefits which are coming up from the large language models. Next slide, please. So we talked about the risk, and then there are benefits. Guardian is the solution and a product which can ensure the security and policy control for any kind of an LLM that you want to adopt in your organization. It provides a specific configurable guardrail solutions and ensures that you can do safe and compliant usage, including the experimentation with this. When we say that it is designed for the enterprises, very specifically the enterprises who wants to use the third party or in-house apps, which are built with any kind of large language models and APIs, we fortify those particular usages. And we ensure that the output at the application level is always compliant, and it is compliant means that it is safeguarded against the legal, policy, role-based and usage-based violations as per organization's policy, which they have configured. And by doing this, organization gets that the best benefit in terms of a middle. We enable the responsible and careful experimentations. They get a compliance with organization's policies rule. Their IP gets protected, and they are safeguarded against the PII leak. And it also has a benefit because it's an entire tool which gives you the automations and productivity gains as well. Now the question is, how does it work? And it works in a very simplified way. Next slide, please. It is a DMZ solution, which is a demilitarized zone. People who are not familiar with it is a term which is coming up from the network security layer as well, where you create a buffer network before you allow anyone to enter or anyone to go outside your network from your organization's network. Similarly, the Guardian, which is there on the right hand side here, which essentially means that user application is there on a one hand, and on the another hand in the blue color what you see is the LLM providers, and then the yellow color is the Guardian, which sits like in a firewall or as a demilitarized zone. And if your user is sending any kind of an input, it analyzes it and checks against your configured policies if it is allowed or not allowed. If it is not allowed, it will simply block and nothing happens. And if it is allowed, then it will unblock that particular input, that is a prompt or the question that you have asked. It will go to the LLM. LLM will do its magic, and then the response comes back. And when the response comes back, the one more time this analysis happens again for the output side policy related settings, and if everything is fine, okay, the output is given. If not, the output is blocked. You might ask that why this thing happens, why the input is also analyzed, why output is analyzed. The problem or the situation here is that the context and the data or the queries prompts which are generated, they have the power to violate the things. And that means you need to have a very powerful solution here which can understand and analyze each and every query in terms of its context, in terms of its usage, and in terms of its role, nuances, legalities, and other aspects. The Guardian is already in a working solution. What you see besides is in a simple demo where something question is asked and input gets blocked, which also follows the philosophy is prevention is better than cure. So it gets prevented. The harmful questions never leaves the, let's say, organization and never hits any kind of an LLM. And second is that, let's say the questions are okay, but the answers might have the violations. Then the answers are again checked by the Guardian, and then the output also gets blocked in this case. And for in normal cases, nothing happens. So it's as if that it doesn't exist for the people who wants to use it responsibly and safely. But however, it creates a guardrail there as well. Next slide, please. So now I'm just going to go into the use cases with respect to the Guardian. That what are the use cases that we have worked upon so far, and that includes the LLM-based virtual assistant, documentation search and retrieval, LLM-assisted software development across various industries. And we have already launched our design partner program back in the month of March. We finished our first cohort, and this was a very interesting journey for us, where we have learned and when we have updated and a lot of features as well. Now, give you the very specific example onto the next slide, which is with respect to the virtual assistants for the medical use. And here is the very specific example on the next slide, please, which is with respect to the doctor-patient interaction, which is empowered by the large language model, which is coming up from the organization where we have deployed that particular things. And in place of not having any kind of a guardrail, when the questions are asked, there are issues with respect to ethical risk and issues with respect to data privacy and confidentiality, which are there. Here, the questions is that my patient has an addiction behavior, and then what is the maximum oxycontin that can be prescribed, which is considered as a substance abuse case, ethical risk. And in another case, it is the issue of getting an address of the 10 surgeons where this particular doctor is not even authorized for or has a consent for this. Next slide, please. And then when the Guardian is implemented in these cases, what we see is that when this kind of questions are asked, the input gets blocked, and the answer is given that the question is considered harmful. And this is how we mitigate the issues of an ethical risk, which is again contextual heavily. And then the second one is with respect to privacy, which is confidentiality, which is also mitigated because the particular operator is not allowed to have this information. But that is not the only case. Somebody in the organization still needs this information, which is on the next slide that we see that when the doctors gets blocked for the similar question, like an oxycontin, but the compliance officer in the hospital who needs to check each and every prescription in order to understand whether none of them is violating, or it's the auditors who wants to check, they get a full-fledged information. So here the magic of policy appears, which is role-based as well, and which needs to be established here. And I'll show you that how it actually happens. Next slide, please. This is another use case which is coming, which is with respect to the code, how to use the LLM for the software development, where the Guardian does a very simple thing. If you ask for any kind of questions which are considered from coding point of view harmful, it will be blocked. If you try to put your proprietary code there, then again it gets blocked, which violates the organization's policy. And in some cases, if you ask the question and the code gets generated and comes back, in that case, it again sanitizes and does not provide you the code, because in order to safeguard the user against the potential copyright infringements and other aspects as well. Next slide, please. And then this gets automatically extended to the contextual interpretation of various use cases. The next one which you see is the manufacturing use case, where if the person asks the questions that how to put a cheap part in a boiler machine, gets an answer. But if they ask that anything other question, that how to use non-approved part in boiler machine, they don't get an answer here, and this gets blocked. On the next slide, what we see is that the multi-language support of a Guardian. Very specifically here, I come from the India, so I have just taken an example of a Hindi, which is the let's say the language which is spoken by many in India. And then this Guardian also is able to have the in-app privacy violation for this kind of a setting, and it is a multi-language support as well. On the next slide is one of the famous examples that people talk about with respect to jailbreaks. And the Guardian has a mechanism that it has able to identify all of their the jailbreaks here and simply blocks this jailbreaks. And these are some of the nastiest jailbreaks. I'm going to show you our early result when we have done the jailbreak benchmarking. against multiple LLMs with Guardian and without Guardian as well. On the Now we have seen this entire journey, that what are the use cases, how it have delivers a benefit, what it looks like. I want to open the hood and go back there a little bit under to see that how the product looks like and how it really works and how it gets trained. On the next slide, please. And after that, one more slide, which is feature support, and after that, one more slide. So the third slide, it is, as we have seen, that it is just the let's say middleware, which is almost like a DMZ. So it comes with a very simple Python kind of an SDK that we have developed to make it easier for developers to use it. And you can start working with the Guardian with just 2 lines of code very simply. And you just have to configure the policies with a ready-made Python SDK, which is simplified with a 3x3 mapping as well. And then you have this the dynamic policy enforcement that happens, logging of all of these explanations in the offline mode. It happens, and it works across all type of LLM and deployments. And it partially supports the large vision model also today, especially for the textual violations. And this is to give you the feeling that how easy it is at many places for the developers to use this. The difficult part is to generate this kind of an entire system and the product and solutions as well. On the next slide, what you see is the integration example, which is coming up with an LLM, that how the Guardian works, which is a demilitarized zone that you have. And then post this aspect of, let's say you have deployed it here, Guardian is also working with the LLM and search and retrieval engine and a lot of other things. What is important here is to see that it works exactly like the middleware, and it integrates very easily. So it's a pass-through for everyone. However, if anything untoward needs to happen, then the Guardian takes care of that and stops this kind of an interactions. On the next slide, I want to focus onto the little bit deeper architecture, that what the Guardian looks like. And this is the deployment architecture along with a block diagram, which is there. So on the one side, you have a user, on the other side, you have LLM. And in the center is the entire block, that what the Guardian has. So Guardian has a simplified policy table with role mapping that we have seen. It has its own fine-tuned Guardian LLM, as well as the domain-specific fine-tuned Guardians, set of an purpose-built foundation models, has a prompt engineering aspects, as well as there is the decision aggregation mechanism which is there, and then also the classification models with respect to the custom BERT which has been designed. The whole idea is to look into the various aspects, to understand the context, decide based upon the policies, and then also do a fair assessment and aggregate it, and then decide whether it is violating, whether the input is violating the policies that you have set up, or whether the output is violating the policies that you have set it up. And then all of this data gets logged as well. So this is the under the hood which is there. What is there in terms of a technology is also very important. When I said that the custom fine-tuned models, if you just fast forward 2 more slides, please, you will see that there are various stages of a Guardian that we have done as a fine-tune as well, which was the one of the important model which you see, which is a custom purpose-built fine-tuned models. We have used the OIG's moderation dataset and trained the base LLMs from the GPT-J series. And this is what we call it as a basic capability, which is mainly for the safety and security focus. And then for the various domains like healthcare, finance, and software engineering, there was a domain-specific fine-tuning which was done, and adaptation which was done. And in parallel, all of this thing was also supported by the various prompt engineering aspects in order to ensure that there is a resistance against the various jailbreaks as well. Next slide, please. Here is with respect to the jailbreak, I just want to give you some of the early results that are there when we are tested with the various large language models. So Azure OpenAI's without Guardian, with Guardian, what kind of a setting, similarly Dolly V2, and then Aleph Alpha's Luminous, which are there. From the information that I can share today, you see that without Guardian, Azure OpenAI's APIs almost only it is able to stop 11 out of the 50 jailbreaks which are there that we have specifically crafted. That means it has the only a 22% blockage rate. With Guardian, this goes up, it goes 74%, it does not go 100%. There is a work which still needs to be done. That is why we call it as an early result. But this is very promising things that we are able to lift the add additional 50% of the, let's say, the resistance inside the models. Similarly, on the Dolly V2, there is no inherent resistance inside the model with respect to the jailbreak. So everything, it lacks nothing. And with Guardian, we were able to boost to the 44%. And then we are going to see that how further that we can do it with this. And this is some very interesting results that are coming from our side. And we are continuously working it and striving it to improve further. The next slide. And I'm now going to wrap it up my presentation, which is essentially that by using the guardrail, there are benefits. You can realize all of your benefits very easily that you have thought about with respect to compliance, responsible care for implementation, safeguarding, and all of this aspect. And the path for implementation of balancing is hard is what we have figured it out. Like training the LLM is hard. Path for balancing is also hard, which requires a lot of self-implementation. It's very expensive. You need to have a lot of knowledge and skills. And there's a manpower issue that we already see, apart from the computer power related issues. And Guardian is precisely that we have built it for the large organizations as well as for everyone in order to ensure that they can get the benefit of the LLM and have the realize their advantage along with this journey, which is a very fascinating journey as well. Last slide, please. So, and now on to the last slide, I just want to give the summary, which is like generative AI and LLMs can transfer productivity and efficiencies, which are there, and everyone should use it. I think there is not, stepping back from that aspect. However, at the same time, everyone need to be aware also about the damaging risk and hindering this implementations that comes along with those particular risks. That means depriving the organizations, the customers, and then the end users, the benefit of the LLM. So please be aware about that particular things. And finally, the Guardian is one of the answers, not the answer, but it's one of the answer to ensure that we can work in the best setting to mitigate this risk and still enjoy the benefits of generative AI and unlock the potential for businesses to sustain, thrive, and grow in the future. So, simple request: use Guardian with generative AI and LLM and unlock your business potentials. Thank you for your attention. And if you have any questions, I'm here.
Woo! Yay! Thank you so much, Manoj. That was awesome. I think you have a question in the chat, so I'm going to send you over there though because we have a couple people queued up.
Okay.
But thank you so much. This was an awesome talk. Thank you.